Let your love be a river. Come and carry me away.
Hey friends, welcome to the first episode of Beyond the Song, where we start with a song off of our latest album and we see where the conversation takes us.
So today we're talking about the first song off the album, which is River. And it's a pretty deep, intense song, I would say.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
What a way to start the album.
I know. Yeah, the first line is,
It's the dark night of the soul.
yeah,
Never slept in a bed so cold.
there you go. There's the album for you, I guess.
That's it.
It's pretty, yeah. But, I mean, I don't know if it's not really that dark of a song. I mean, I always get a little self-conscious, I think, playing it.
Totally.
Because I'm always afraid that if it's going to be too sad or too deep or too intense, that it could bring a show down a little bit.
Like the energy
yeah,
of the room was just going to kind of crash.
Right.
And then that's our fault. And how do you come back from that?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the beginning is, the verses are a little dark.
Mm.
And then I think the choruses have a different feel, and definitely the end of the song,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of like culmination of the whole song is not really as dark as it all comes across. I think if you're listening, then you realize it's actually pretty hopeful, ultimately. Right?
Yeah,
Which I think is true about the whole album.
I think so.
So what does the song mean to you? I mean, I know it's super personal.
Yeah, it is quite personal, but I think overall, really what I wanted to explore, I think what I needed to explore in the song itself was just kind of coming to that end of yourself, the feeling like you really are not sure where to go at like a crossroads, and recognizing, I guess, that limit in myself, limit in ourselves, the limit for control, the limit for being able to know what is ahead, or really how to move forward, and then being able to let go of that. So I think it's more of like a question of, is it okay to let go? And if you do,
What happens? Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. The first time I heard you play the song, because we write sort of separately.
Right.
This one was, I would say, only written by you. I didn't really touch it at all.
No.
Until we started playing it. The first time I heard the song, I actually thought it was about me, and it was about my struggle with depression. And kind of like you're wanting to be the river for me to kind of rest. And yeah, I've never told you that before.
No.
There you go. Beyond the song, I guess.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first time I heard it, I was like, you hadn't told me what it was about. And so I think I connected to it pretty deeply, because the experience of depression, I will say, is dark and feels like my experience has been that feeling of being stuck in bed. So your first couple lines about being in a really cold, dark bed, just to me was
Felt
like,
so literal.
oh man, yeah, super literal.
Yeah.
And so for me, this has nothing to do with what the song was actually about, but it's kind of cool that we write separately, because then, like, even we have our own interpretations of our own music because the two of us are separate. And it's kind of cool because then you get an insight to the fact that an audience would hear something totally differently.
Totally different. And bring their own context into it.
Yeah. So for me, the like letting love be a river, you know, for me, with dealing with mental illness, dealing with depression, it's been like, it's a cool line for me. Like, if your love were a river, you know, if I could just accept this and be stuck in bed today, and if love were just enough, like, to me, I think that is the antidote to so much of our suffering. You know, like, I think we work really, really hard to try to like fix mental illness, and don't get me wrong, I think that there's like amazing treatment, and that I personally have gotten a lot of help from really practical things,
right?
Like therapy and putting the right chemicals into my body and everything. And I think that's totally like necessary. But after those things happened, what I realized was the more that I fought it, the more that it upset me that there was something wrong with me, the harder it is to kind of like work against it. But the more that I could accept it and kind of rest in it and be like, okay, that's fine. Like, I love myself enough today. You know, Eric loves me enough. God loves me enough that I'm just gonna like, whatever. This sucks.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna like let it be. That, I think, is the thing that allows me the most healing and rest and like a way forward through it.
Yeah.
So that song was really impactful because I felt like I was learning a lot of that stuff around the same time as when you wrote it. So for me, it was like kind of cool, and it's cool to sing it because I think it's personal for me.
Feels that way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's something really powerful about acceptance, right?
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm hearing from you. And I don't know, like, how do you get there, right?
Yeah.
Because what's the opposite?
I mean, for sure.
What's the opposite of acceptance?
Denial.
Denial.
And I mean, it's so cliche, but the first step to recovery is acceptance. Admitting that there's something wrong. And I think we hear that because of like the AA cliche, and because like we just hear it so often that we're like, oh, whatever. But there's a reason for a cliche, right? And like, literally, if you won't accept that you have like a cut on your skin, and you're like, no, it never happened, it's not there, then like, literally, what are you gonna do about it? Like, it's gonna get infected. Totally. Everything's just gonna go. This little fixable thing is like, becomes this huge problem.
Yeah, something that I've been thinking about lately with denial is sort of thinking about it in imagery of light and darkness. Like, you could be in a dark room, right? And you're kind of aware that there's something, let's just say there's something wrong, right? You're aware that there's something in the room, but you're like not really willing to look at it. And when you don't look at it, it either is like, oh, it just doesn't exist, or it could be this like, it could become something totally different than what it actually is. Yeah. Because our imagination just runs with it or whatever. Right.
When you're a kid and the like tree is hitting the window and you think it's a monster. Totally. Like, I used to think it was like a tornado or something. Like, totally.
Yeah, right. Like, you just go to these exaggerated, ideas of what it might be.
Yeah. And then
But then if you turn the light on, right, it doesn't fix whatever it is, but then you at least are like looking at,
Yeah.
you're getting like actual information.
Well, you have a way
and
forward.
you're saying, okay, now I know exactly what it is I'm dealing with, and so I can kind of move forward.
Yeah. And it can all be so much more logical. And like mental illness is so fixable, but I think there's a stigma with mental illness, and then also it's just really hard and really scary to face it. Like it makes you feel like
You're broken.
and like you failed, or like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have the same problems as my parents or my family or whoever. Like you can just get so in your head about it, and then it doesn't help that when you are dealing with anxiety or depression or whatever,
Yeah.
that a lot of those thoughts get like really exacerbated.
Yeah.
So it's even harder. But it really is this fixable thing now. You know, there's so much out there. Like there's so many resources and things that really help me, that it's the same thing. Like, I don't know, it took me a long time
Yeah.
to say to myself, oh, okay, yeah, depression, got it. But I was so unwilling even to say that word for so long that until I could say the word, I couldn't really move forward.
Couldn't move forward.
Like it was all,
Totally.
you know, it was all like other stuff until, oh, this is what it is. And then this big weight lifted. Like once that light came on, it was like, oh, it's fixable. Like this is an actual.
It has a name. It's not the same Morphus, like.
Right. Like
Whatever.
existential suffering. Like
Yeah.
yeah, we all deal with that. But when you
Yeah.
think it's just this like this spiritual, existential, like this big failure or something, you're just like, oh, there's no way out. But when someone's like, this is a diagnosable, like this is like in a textbook, like I can tell you why you're feeling these ways, and I can tell you like how we can just move forward. It's once you can accept that, it's like, for me, a huge part of actually healing from depression was just that. Like literally just saying it for me was so big that it was like changed everything at that point. And now I have way more good days than bad days, but on bad days I know this is because of this disorder. It's not because I failed at whatever, or because like existentially, spiritually, there's all, you know, this deep like horrible stuff going on. Sometimes there's stuff like
Sure.
that, but
Yeah.
when you can just be like, oh yeah, right, this is not a good day, depression wise, you can just be like, great,
Yeah.
tomorrow I'll probably feel better, and you can kind of just keep moving.
But today
Today
I just need
sucks.
to accept
Yeah.
that this is a sucky day.
And you lay down in the river and just go, okay, whatever, like I'm just gonna float here, and it's out of my control, you know.
Yeah.
Some days totally out of your control, other days you can definitely, like, you can get up and move a little bit more, but sometimes it's just, yeah, you just let it be the river, and you just kind of float through it, and that's that.
Yeah.
And it's helpful to do that. So
Well, an interesting part of this song to me is the voices change. And that was when it started formulating in my mind, right? And I started getting a vision for the song. I knew like I wanted to sing the first half of it, right? The two verses and the choruses. And I was picturing this like shift. All of a sudden we have a key shift partway through the song, and then you start singing lead. Right? It's this new voice, and it's a new perspective. So the song moves from the person at the beginning who's like feeling just that empty, lost, the question, can I surrender? Can I let go? Is it okay? And then the voice, a response being like, you're not alone. And, you know, I'm here. I always have been. And I know what it's like,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. That voice was God to me when I first heard
Sure.
it. I was like, you know, that this this God that has like flesh and bone and understands suffering, right? Like Jesus. So I think that was my perception of it, was that like there was a tangible like spiritual shift, like something could come and help you with that acceptance, right?
Yeah.
So that you weren't just like trying to accept it on your own, but there was something that enters the picture and is like,
Yeah.
here, like I get it, and
Yeah.
it's a, you know, you'll be okay.
And it's like a bigger okay. Like I think it's powerful for ourselves as individuals to be able to, in our own sort of like way that we see ourselves and with our own, you know, being, say like, hey, I'm okay. But then the idea that like there's something bigger that we can surrender to, and that you know, universal, like it's okay,
Right.
is like even,
Yeah.
you know, it's beyond us. And I think you know, with like you're talking about sort of this idea of God or Jesus, like the Jesus story to me that is compelling in relationship to this song is like the idea of like Jesus being a person and experiencing what we all experience.
Yeah.
Is in a way like God saying like, hey, I know what it's like
Right.
to be a person. I know what it's like to live, to love, to lose, to hurt, to celebrate. And, you know, like the human experience as in all of its mix and all of its sort of complexity is a good thing. You know?
Right. And it's survivable.
Survivable.
Yeah.
You're gonna make it.
Right. I mean, you're not gonna make it.
Well, no one makes it out
Ultimately.
alive.
You won't make it, but you'll make it, you
think-
know? Like, even in the worst possible suffering, like, you're
Yeah.
still, you know, like, even in death, even in the worst stuff,
Yeah.
you know? It's survivable, even when it's not, I guess. But that's the big, huge existential thing, you know? Like, that's the big existential hope, you know? When depression, mental illness, like, fixable in certain ways, treatable, I would say, in like certain ways, and doesn't have to be as like sometimes it feels so huge and heady. And I think that response, that very heady response, is like meets it really well. I don't know. So I had my interpretations of the song, and then you shared with me, and you share sometimes at shows, that the song is actually came from, you had family members actually, let me try that again. So I had my experience with the song,
Right.
pretty personal, like my own experience with mental illness, and then after, you know, once we were going through the song together, you told me what it was really about.
Yeah.
And it had come from these experiences of family members. Actually, we lost family, and I actually lost a friend a little bit after that from mental illness, like tragedies that came
directly related to their own struggle with
different mental illnesses.
Yeah. And so as I was exploring sort of that space a bit of coming to the end of yourself and wanting it to just be over, you know, I think it's sort of that like alternative, the surrender that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Is it a surrender where I just, you know, say like, hey, I don't want to keep going, or is there something else? And that was kind of like my where I was heading. Like, what do I feel like if I could imagine a response from a God who is loving and who knows our experience? What would that response be? And I think we often want things to just like to go away, right? We want our problems to just be fixed, or just to like have it somehow turned off. And I find it interesting in the Jesus story, right? Is that we don't necessarily find answers to like why things are so hard. We don't necessarily find answers to why this happens or that happens. But God's like, but you're not alone.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, it totally sucks and I get it. I understand that, and you're not alone.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm gonna walk with you through this. And so that was kind of where I was at. You know, what do I feel like God would say to my loved one, or to me, if I were like, hey, I want to call it, you know? And it'd be like, why don't you call it in another way and surrender to my love? You can kind of let my love be a river, you know, to quote the song.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's sort of the, you know, the real backstory of River.
Yeah. So it is pretty dark.
It is.
It's both. Like, it's that, you know, that really true to life experience of things being dark and light at the same time.
Yeah.
And
which
that,
I think is human.
yeah, it's human.
It's the human experience.
And that was this album. It was just like, how do, you know, we saw some stuff and like went through some stuff, and things were dark and really, really sad. And then you experience this weird, like, profound hope in the middle of suffering. And so it's like, what do you do with that dichotomy that's like so real? I mean, I'm sure people say all the time, like, oh, that funeral was actually really beautiful, right? And you're like, it doesn't make any sense.
Logically, it doesn't.
Yeah, logically, it's like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. You know, like, things can be so dark, and yet somehow, like, we're experiencing joy at the same time. And sometimes when the suffering's more intense, the joy is more intense too. And it's like, I don't know, just this wild thing that's happening to all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I want to make art about. I
Totally.
think it's just both.
Yeah.
The whole thing. So, nice song.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's a great one. And I want to sing it more at shows.
Let's keep trying to do that
Do
then.
Cool.
So,
I think that was a great
Yeah.
conversation.
thanks for having it with me. And thanks for listening in. We appreciate it. We appreciate you. This was the first episode of Beyond the Song, and we'll see you next time.